Well, we've trimmed our rhubarb off that you saw us harvest outside under the forces. All we've done is trim the tops and bottoms off using a sharp knife, taken all the leaf off, and that goes to be composted, and cleaned up the bases where it's grown out of the plant, just so you take any brown calyces or little old leaves that are sticking to it. This has now been washed and rinsed and then put on the drainer just to dry, and you'll see this is just the crop you get from a single established head of rhubarb or crown of rhubarb. And now all we've got to do to prep this and get it ready for cooking is cut it into chunks. So that's what we're going to do now. Forced rhubarb tends to be incredibly tender, so there's not a lot to cutting it up, and we tend to do it in quite large chunks, about probably 5 centimeters long. That freezes nicely, it's easy to handle and gives you lovely big lumps of rhubarb if it's cooked very slowly, and we're going to show you how to do that in an AGA with absolutely no fuss. So let me get on and chop up the remainder of this rhubarb, and then we'll show you that. Well, I've chopped only about, maybe a third, probably a half of the rhubarb, and you'll see the big chunks that we've cut that into. What we're going to do now is cook some of this, and to do that all I'm going to do is fill this bowl with enough of this chopped rhubarb, all I can get in it goes. We've picked, you'll see, the big thick stems, but also some of the smaller thinner stems, because the colour on those is so intense. They really are worth harvesting as well, although they take a little bit more time. Okay, so we've got a good bowl full there, and what we're going to do now to cook this, very simple. I'm just going to sprinkle it with a good helping of ordinary granulated sugar. In it goes. Right, you'll see that's very dry. There's no liquid in the bottom or anything, but this is the simplest way of cooking the rhubarb, is just to pop it into the simmering oven on an AGA and come back, and that will be ready and cooked in a few hours' time. The remaining rhubarb, obviously, we want to store for later use, and all we're going to do with this is cut it into the same unequal chunks, and then it gets put straight without any preparation or fancy business, no blanching, no steaming, nothing at all, straight into a large, robust freezer bag. There's the bag full. All we're going to do now is try and get as much air out of this as possible, twist the bag top together, and in it goes to a domestic freezer, and that can be stored for anything up to 3 to 6 months. This is a small portion that I prepared a couple of weeks ago when we were first lifting the rhubarb, just to show you what it's like. So a lot of you will say, oh, but if it's not been blanched or frozen on trays, it's going to all stick together. It doesn't. Look, this has just come straight out of the bag. There's a little bit of ice crystal forming around there, but it's all loose, which means you can get as much or as little of the rhubarb out to use to make a dessert or pudding whenever you want. Right, now this rhubarb has just come out of the simmering AGA. Been in there for about 5.5 hours, and it's just absolutely perfectly cooked now. You can see that what's come out of the rhubarb is a clear pinkish syrup, and the rhubarb's just kept its consistency and its chunks. It's not gone to mush. If I just put a spoon in there and show you some of the syrup, you'll see it's a beautiful, beautiful pink colour. So you can let that cool. You can adjust the sweetness now. Try a little bit. The rhubarb is soft, succulent, but not dried out and not gone stringy or to mush. And we'll either eat that warm, or that can go now into a fridge, into a sealed container, be stored for several days and used as and when you want. It can be heated up gently either in a microwave or back into the AGA, or it's delicious cold. So that's perfect poached rhubarb, pink forced rhubarb, slow cooked or simmered in a range.